Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Miro Cavkov, the Technical Director for Downstream Matters at EPC. Shortly for us, we are an independent consultancy in the downstream energy sector and also organizers of the upcoming Middle East Technology Conference for Refining and Petrochemicals, which for 14 years now is known as the MidTech Conference. This year, we are looking forward to connect the downstream community to address and exchange ideas on how to overcome the challenges being faced by the regional industry players. Today, we're pleased to be joined by Dr. Richard Charlesworth, who is the Executive Director, Industry Processes and Cost Analytics at S&P Global Commodity Insights. To give you a brief about S&P Global Commodity Insights, it is the leading independent provider of critical information, analytics, and benchmark prices for commodities and energy markets. A warm welcome to you, Richard.
Thanks, Marian.
You'll be joining us for MidTech 2024, and we'll do the opening, the scene-setting industry overview, covering the important markets for the downstream sector. Is that true?
That's right. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely, you're welcome. We have several questions prepared for you, topics which I believe every person involved in the industry would like to, and we'll be happy to hear further about what is the current status of them. And without any further ado, maybe we can dig up and start with the first one. And it is, with current geopolitical events, what is the expectation for oil in 2024 and beyond?
Well, oil refining and petrochemical markets are facing an unexpected journey in the short and medium term. For oil, when I presented at METech last year, just a year ago, the price was expected to be influenced by a trio of major forces in the near term, namely Russian production, Saudi and the wider OPEC production quotas, and the demand boost from China reopening post-COVID. However, conflicts in the Middle East and a lackluster China reopening were not expected. The conflict in the Middle East is not really changing oil market fundamentals, but it intensifies uncertainty and fear on top of the myriad of other global events and trends. And the fear factor about supply reliability is supporting oil prices during what is now the weakest part of the year for oil fundamentals. The primary fear factor is the Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping. Oil tanker traffic via the Red Sea is down by roughly 1/3 in January. And the effect on ship diversions is the expansion of a sort of virtual pipeline, a 2-week longer voyage around Africa. We estimate around 75 million barrels are rerouted around Africa and added to the inventories at sea. This equates to a price rise of, we think, around $3 to $4 a barrel based on historical price and inventory relationships. And of course, the fear of something worse happening can add more to the price. Europe is especially vulnerable to a spike in diesel prices because of the low inventories and imports that transit the Red Sea. And Russia could be the biggest loser if larger scale rerouting is required. However, unless oil supply is effective, geopolitics will have an up and down price impact because of ample production. Ukraine's attack on Russian oil infrastructure could accumulate and limit Russian oil exports for a time, but ongoing supply growth outside of OPEC Plus, which we think will exceed world oil demand growth again in 2024, is the main reason why there is close to 5 million barrels a day of spare capacity amongst the Gulf 3 of Saudi, UAE and Kuwait. Prices we think will have to move above $90 a barrel or even $100 a barrel in order for the Gulf 3 to increase production. So what does that mean for price? Everyone asks that. The global oil balance, we expected to tighten after the first quarter of 24. We expect another OPEC plus cut in 25. What could otherwise be a potential significant surplus in the next year. So overall, our price outlook for 2024 is annual average prices of $83 a barrel for dated Brent, WTI a few dollars less. A key assumption is the level of OPEC plus supply restraint through the end of the year amid a strong North American supply growth. So our 2025 outlook is at $76 for dated Brent.
Thank you. That means like a good compromise between the producers of feedstock, good for the refiners, for the processing industry, and of course the end users when we go to the gas station to the pump it. Let's hope that this will be great, unchanged. Sounds good. Especially the dated Brent is a commodity that refiners like to have it because light, nice oil that can be processed easily. All right, we covered the feedstock, but what happens further downstream? Exactly what is currently happening within the refining and petrochemical markets?
Right, I'll start with refining. A structural deficit in global refining capacity has kept refined product markets unusually tight and margins very high for the past 2 years, a feast of margins. As with oil, Red Sea shipping disruptions are leading to increased freight rates and journey times. Petroineos Grangemouth has announced plans to shut down in 2025, which increases refinery rationalization announcements since 2020 to more than 4.8 million barrels a day. But on the other side to this, there are 8 major refinery projects just on stream or coming on stream in the next year. Many of these in the Middle East and Africa, such as Duqm, Dangote, Sitra, Al Zour. And this overall great shakeout, as we call it, of uncompetitive refineries has exacerbated the trend of the global East capacity expansion versus global West's capacity contraction. We expect margins to decline over the next 2 years to more usual levels, but then have a small boost due to an accelerated closure of European refineries. And then into the 2030s, we expect margins to decline again. Now, within basic petrochemicals, I'd say the situation with ethylene is representative of all basic chemicals. 4 years ago, the industry's ethylene capacity utilization rate was a healthy 85%, but it's not currently forecast to return to that level for almost 10 years due to overcapacity. So one normally expects petrochemical cycles to be shorter, but the level of overbuild means that between 10 to 15 million tons of ethylene capacity needs to be shut down by the end of 2026 for a sustainable margin recovery. And given the timescale and issues related to shutting down plants, this seems unlikely. This oversupply in all basic chemicals was forecasted, but the expectation for recovery continues to be pushed further into the future as global average growth is expected to be only 3.5% a year for the next 10 years. The lackluster petrochemical demand growth in China versus early expectations is a major element in the mix. The positive news for Middle East producers is that chemicals based on their low-cost natural gas and NGL feedstocks will continue to be competitive compared with naphtha-based chemicals. The margins for the latter are not expected to be positive for another year or so. And also, Middle East producers are close to the much higher growth regions of India and Africa. Longer-term growth is also positive. We continue to see petrochemical growth in basic chemicals. There may be a peak oil coming on the horizon, but we are not forecasting peak polymer.
Thank you, Richard. Well, not good news for Europe, but as we see, Middle East is developing and will back up the global need for polymers and petrochemicals. And yeah, nowadays, everything is around the emissions and decarbonization and the green developments. And the next question that we have for you is, with the industry swirling around the decarbonization and those green developments, well, what are the implications for the industry?
Well, the petrochemical industry has, of course, been cyclical for decades. However, one quite so deep, and certainly not under the pressures as they are today to decarbonize and to recycle plastic waste. So more than 70% of the world's top 100 chemicals producers have committed to carbon neutrality by 2050, and more have set interim targets. And these are all top-down targets. There are a myriad of options to decarbonize the industry. Opportunities upstream from greener feedstocks, pyrolysis oil, and other products from recycling plastic waste. Within the refinery and petrochemical complex itself, there are renewables, electrification, hydrogen, CO2 use or sequestration, and even new zero carbon power technology that captures CO2 at source. And a deeper chemical integration is also a decarbonisation strategy to reduce Scope 3 emissions for refineries. However, all of these options are very expensive. And so in this extended bottom of cycle environment, producers will have to understand the CapEx and future OpEx of decarbonisation and the levers they will need to pull to restore future earnings growth. For example, with green product price premiums. In addition, we see that government policy-driven carbon credits will be needed to maintain future earnings for the petrochemical industry.
Absolutely, the regulations are very important to push forward these developments. And one thing that we learned through the years, in the industry, there's not a silver bullet that can solve the issues for each facility. So each producer, each processing company needs to find its way how to fit within the current scenario. And we have one last question for you. It's what is your message and what would you like to share and tell to the industry peers who will join us at MITEC in 2 weeks?
Yeah. So my message is that producers have to understand the bottom-up solutions, the technologies, the CapEx and OpEx to meet the top-down decarbonisation targets. And they certainly need to understand, with all that CapEx and OpEx, what's needed insofar as product premiums and future carbon credits to survive this very much extended bottom of cycle conditions. And I'll give a lot more detail in my opening presentation at MITEC next month.
Looking forward to it. We are in an unprecedented situation where all technologies and solutions must be put to work together. And with this, we encourage all regional producers to register for MITEC 2024 to come and meet on site in Conrad, Dubai on 5th of March. So, Richard, it was my great pleasure to speak with you. Thank you. See you soon.
Yeah. Bye.